Alright, and welcome back to another episode of the Magical Attribute Index. So, for this week, I will be doing copy magic. Now, with copy magic, I'm not for sure if it's called imitation magic or copy magic. I'm trying to go like in a loose alphabetical order, but I'm pretty sure it's a copy and not imitation. If not, who cares? But anyway, with copy magic. Now, this is a really, at first glance, overpowered magic attribute, but at the same time, it comes with like some harsh limitations. So, from what we know about copy magic, is it allows you to copy the attributes of anyone else's grimoire that you touch. So, Raya, being the only character that we know who has this, has to actually physically touch another person's grimoire to copy the spells out of said grimoire. Now, it's not for sure exactly how much he gets from copying a person's grimoire, but in my opinion, I feel like he would be able to copy all the spells out of someone's grimoire, like at that moment. Like, I don't think he would be able to copy spells that haven't been in the grimoire yet. So, like, take Yami's grimoire that he touched. Like, he touched Yami's grimoire and got access to the Lightless Slash. Now, after that, Yami learned the Dark Dimension Slash, which I do not believe that Raya has access to, just because he touched his grimoire before he even had that spell. Now, as for, say, like Yami's Black Hole, I do believe that he has access to that one. Is it Black Hole or is it Dark Hole? It's one of those two. Yami's whole spell. But I do believe he has access to, say, like that spell. And then the reasoning for this is, I believe that because like we've seen it with copy magic, we've seen him use multiple different spells from Lich, or I guess that would be Partry. That would be my assumption there. Or you could think of it as a copy magic user would have to touch a grimoire multiple times to get multiple spells out of a grimoire. I like that way a lot more, just because I feel like it's more fair, like it keeps it more balanced. And then another like important thing about copy magic, or more or less like a precursor, or not really a precursor, but like the like second main important thing about it is the spells that you copy will be brought to your level. So copy magic user will really, in my opinion, only get a lot of value or benefit if you have a lot of mana, say like an elf or a royal, or even like a really freakishly high mana level noble. Like outside of those three things, like if you're a peasant and you have copy magic, like it's a cool type to have, sure, but like you won't really be able to get use out of it because you're just dropping the spells down to your level. Like if you're a peasant, you got copy magic and you touch Noel's grimoire and you get Sea Dragon's Roar, you're gonna have a really flimsy, weak Sea Dragon's Roar, which is kind of useless, unfortunately. But however, if you have that high amount of mana and you touch Magna's grimoire, your exploding fireballs will be that much more powerful. So with those two like main stipulations out of the way, from here it just kind of depends on how you look at it. Like some people would consider copy magic to be extremely powerful, whereas a lot of other people would consider it to be extremely limiting, given the conditions needed to even use it effectively, and just the fact that you need to go out and touch a bunch of like amazing people's grimoires. Like, because just touching like grimoires for regular spells, I mean, it's cool, but like there's still like a certain level of like compatibility almost between spells. Like take Raya copying Yami's not Dark Dimension Slash, but take Raya copying his Dark Clouded Lightless Slash. Cool, he was able to copy dark magic, the effects of the magic and everything, and make the spell itself more powerful. However, since it's a physical slashing attack, Yami's physical strength is also a huge factor in that as well. So if you yourself is significantly weaker physically than the person performing a more or less physical based spell, then it kind of takes away from you copying it in that sense too. Like say if Raya or a copy magic user was to copy, say like Lux boots and claws, like the spells for those, he wouldn't be able to use them as effectively, just because he's not as experienced, or they are not as experienced being a close range fighter, or actually being able to like fight and use them in the same manner as the initial person. Same thing for even a spell as weak as Magna's fireballs. Like yes, the fireball itself would be stronger, like it would be more potent and more than likely bigger, but would you be able to throw them in the same fashion as Magna, like with as much force, is a totally another story, which is again another limiting thing about copy magic. So With copy magic, it's almost like the user themselves would have to target spells that are more or less easy to use, like just big attack spells. Or if you were like a physical copy magic user, you would just copy only close range spells, which would actually be kind of cool to see. Like just like this dude that's just like all he's just strong, but he just copies like physical based attacks. So he just copies like people's creation magic for different like axes and swords and different like attacks, like Lux Yamis or Magnus that more or less rely on physical strength versus just shooting a big blast. I think that would be really cool too, because they wouldn't even, that would be a way to use copy magic without necessarily having to have a huge mana pool, and that would offset a limitation of it. So honestly, with that one out of the way, there's only one limitation to copy magic, and that's just finding access to a bunch of different magics. You would just have to find the ones that complement your fighting style as best as you could. Now we know with copy magic you're only able to use one magic at a time. Typically, I mean, there was the instance when Raya was awakened and he was able to use two at the same time. I believe with using multiple magics at the same time with copy magic, I think it's more or less tied to your proficiency with that said magic type versus how much magical power you have. Just because to me it seems more of like a mixture of, like I said, proficiency and like control. Just because if we're going off like strictly magic power, like Raya when he awakened was like an apostle elf, so he has like tons of mana. Like he has mana for days. So I don't necessarily think the amount of power you have is the issue, or the mana amount you have is the issue. I just think it's how well you can control and utilize your magic, because as we know, Raya is extremely lazy. So it's very safe to assume that he didn't really train all like that, especially seeing his elves are just innately strong and are loved by mana. So there's really no reason for Raya to train or have trained a lot to be able to use his magic extremely well. So you could assume that if there was another copy magic user, they could potentially use two spells at the same time a lot easier than Raya could, or possibly three or even more. I definitely think it would cap off at like a point at maybe like 3 or 4 or 5, God forbid, but anything more than that would kind of just get a little crazy. I mean, if there was a copy mage that could just use unlimited number of spells at the same time, that would just be insane. Like they would be really broken, assuming they were able to touch multiple grimoires that had powerful spells in them and had a mana amount to actually use them. But another interesting thing I thought about with copy magic is there was the instance where Raya had touched Asta's grimoire, and he was able to copy Asta's sword, but he was not able to copy the anti-magic effects. And from the looks of it, he also wasn't even able to get Lich's original effects out of it, because it was Lich's sword. But I mean, granted, we don't know what the Demon Slayer sword actually did while it was in his possession, but it looks like when Raya copied the sword, he literally just copied the sword itself and nothing else. So from there, it makes me wonder, like, are there other types of magics or grimoires that if he touched, or that if a copy magic user touched, it would have similar effects? Like, say if Raya touched Ladros's grimoire, I don't believe we've seen like a spell that Ladros used. Cause I want to say, I don't think Million Lasers is actually a spell. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like Million Lasers was just an attack, or like a technique, just because Ladros doesn't have a magical affinity. So I don't really know how that works. Like would a copy magic user be able to copy Million Lasers, or is it just like a Ladros specific technique per se? Similar to like if Raya was to touch, say, Marileona's grimoire, he wouldn't just off top be able to use the Monazone version of the, I'm gonna butcher this name, the Acadius Brachum, however you say that. I don't think he would be able to just do that, since it's like a Monazone technique. Like, so there's like, just because you copy the magic doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to use the techniques in them. Or even say if a copy magic user touches Mars's grimoire, how does that work? Like, if you touch Mars's grimoire, do you just get all of the spells? Like, do you get the mineral ones and the fire ones? Or like, could it even be to where if you touch the mineral side, you get the mineral spells, and if you touch the fire side, you get like the fire spells? I wonder exactly how that does work, because we did see that Raya did use the Salamander's Breath spell, but he never used any of the mineral based spells, which was interesting. It makes me wonder, did he only touch the fire side, or will you not get the person's will you not get the magic that isn't directly tied to that person? Like by that I'm meaning like Fauna in Fauna's body was a fire mage. So even though her grimoire has the mineral stuff attached to it, since she herself was only a fire mage initially and originally, she will only be able to give him the fire spells and not the mineral ones, which is an interesting thing to think about in my opinion. And then even more along those lines, there's even probably more things that would fall into that category. Like say if you're a copy mage and you touch say Henry's grimoire, do you both have control over the Black Bull's base now, or only one of you, or does it not do anything since you're not connected to a certain area? Yeah, so like with those things, there's definitely just a lot of small nuances that would affect a copy mage quite a lot. Like, so just you being able to copy someone's magic is not enough a lot of the times in my opinion. Like for the most part, if you're a copy mage, you would probably have to live a life of just trying to copy like as general spells as you can, or as best as you can. And then one of the issues with copy magic, or I guess it's not really a issue, is that you don't have any original spells yourself because all your spells are copied. Now, one thing I was thinking about with that is it could go back to what I was saying earlier, where you can use multiple magics at the same time. Now, using multiple magic at the same time, you can take that a step further and take it to combining magic at the same time. So you essentially could be a one-person combo or one-person compound magic machine at that point. Like you could you could take any combo spell, like the one that say Luck, Pooley, and Klaus did. Like say you copied all three of their magics, you could essentially do that same spell just by yourself. That big like lightning winged catapult thing, you could do that alone with copy magic, and that could be like your own original spell. Like you could make your own combo spells, like that big quintet combo element spell that Raya and those other elves did. Like say if you were really versed in copy magic, like you actually trained where you could use multiple magic at the same time, that could be your one own original spell just because you have all the types inside of you and you trained enough to be able to use them at the same time. So essentially copy magic could get extremely broken if you trained and had the mana to be able to use it. Now, as far as like taking it to the next level with like say Mana Zone and runes, copy magic is perfect for these things because you have access to so many different ways to use Mana Zone. There's so many different spells that you'd probably want to cast in like any direction, and of course you'll definitely benefit from the extra mobility. Same as runes, giving any of these spells extra effects and things along those lines would be extremely useful. Just the main issue is there's so much to learn. Just because you have so much to go for, it would definitely fall back into the whole saying of jack of all trades, master of none. That would definitely be a major fallback of copy magic. It's just there's so much to learn. Like your learning curve for your magic is much steeper than someone with just fire magic. So the idea that there could be a copy mage in the future, or even lazy Raya possibly realizing it to its fullest potential, is unfortunately really slim. But it's just cool to think about everything that copy magic could potentially do. Let me know down below if you think of anything else that copy magic could possibly do, like my idea of being able to copy multiple spells at the same time and being your own combo or your own compound magic user is really cool to me. But if you guys can think of anything else, I would love to hear what you guys come up with down below. As for the next episode, I'm not quite for sure what I want to do next. Like I always say, you guys can leave some suggestions down below. I am trying to go in like a loose order, so if you guys can think of any ones that are in the C's or D's, that would be amazing. Dark magic is coming up because I mean it's freaking dark magic. I do have to do that one. There's just like some cool C ones that I thought about that I wanted to do next. But with that out of the way, like and sub to the video. I always enjoy the support that you guys give me. I appreciate it a lot. And I am Quan Credible, and I will catch you guys next time.